Hello everyone, Burb here. Mejiro Ardan is releasing tomorrow. I like to compile everything that I found out about the character into a singular video. Probably a little too much than necessary, but let's talk about Mejiro Ardan. Not going to go too deep into the actual banner itself, because I did that in the Vanilla Bourbon banner, but you know the deal, 30,000 carats. Look at your pull plan. Can you pull for an Uma right now without having to change your goals? And of course, do you like the character? If you have all three of those, feel free to pull. If you're on the side where you just need a little bit more validation to pull for characters you like, because every single character in this game is useful in their own special way. This character in particular is a medium specialist, but not only that, it is a surprisingly good parent. So she's not necessarily on the level of the acceleration ultimates, but she has a very, very nice late race ultimate that has some specific advantages over other characters in the parenting department. So we'll talk about that closer to the end of the video, but let's go and get into it. We have a lot to talk about. So Aptitude, she's incredibly, incredibly versatile. She has all four distances within reach: short E, mile B, medium A, long D. If you're an Oshi player, you can play her in any distance on any turf track and not have much trouble at all. If you want to force her dirt, you require dirt F to dirt B, and you generally will probably play her pace chaser and need a spark for mile, so that's 4 parents on dirt, 1 parent on mile, and then the rest is she's probably playing a pace chaser at that point. But you can force her pretty much everywhere except for end closers, a little difficult, but yeah. Notably, turf A, medium A, pace A with no other A's means that you can really focus your parents' pink sparks, which is unique to a lot of other late race ultimate users. Ogiri, Cap, and Rudolph have a bunch of different A's, and 6 in particular, and so it's really difficult to pin down a singular pink spark when you're trying to build them for parenting reasons. Mejiro Ardan, you just basically, if you're not using medium, pace, or turf, you can bring up whatever aptitude you need, and there you go. You have a 1 in 4, or, turf's not bad, and whatever style's not bad, so you usually have about a 3 out of 4 chance to actually getting a pink spark that you like. So she's very focused when it turns to pink sparks, and that's kind of unique for this style. So we'll talk about parents later. Let's talk about her bonus. One of the easiest bonus to talk about: 20% wit, 10% speed. You want to press the wit button a lot. You want to press the speed button. Those are the good buttons anyways, so you build a speed wit deck. You load up on as many power sparks as you can, and you load up on enough stamina sparks to actually reach your minimum stamina requirements. You really, really want these speed wet decks on her. I have swapped over to Track Blazer decks. So these are all 50% plus race bonus decks that do not include Rico. These are sort of interchangeable with whatever cards that you have, but I find that if you really go all in on 2 different training types in Track Blazer, from what I've heard, I believe you're going to have a little more success. So for sprints and miles, you run just a speed wit deck. For longs, unfortunately, your stamina sparks aren't going to be enough to hit stamina requirements without suffering too much power. So you generally, instead of running power builds because you don't really want to press the power button that much, you can instead run a singular stamina card if the card is strong enough, like Super Creek, or you can sacrifice maybe another wit card for double stamina. Manhattan Cafe is really the only 10% SR that I believe exists at the moment. I could be wrong. So if you're more free to play or newer, Manhattan Cafe is your go-to, or you just borrow Super Creek in that case. So these are her builds. Like I said, not really much to talk about. Speed Wit's one of the best stat bonus, arrangements in the game. It's honestly pretty nice. It's the same reason why Mejiro Dober, I enjoy running her so much. It's going to be super comfy. Let's talk about her ultimate, A Lifelong Dream, A Moment's Flight. The game says, seize the moment when close to the runner behind on the final straight, slightly consuming endurance to greatly increase velocity for a moderate duration. That's a lot of words to say. Is it the final straight and mentioned if behind less than or equal to 1? If you succeed those conditions, you get a 4-second 0.45 above rate buff, but you have a little bit of stamina drain at minus 0.01. Is it the last straight? Well, it's just the last straight of the race. In miles and sprints in particular, you have the problem that the spurt is very close to the final straight. So her ultimate, because the conditions are so easy to fulfill, will most likely proc at the first part of the actual final straight, and it will get eaten up by the acceleration zone in shorts and miles. However, in mediums and longs, the final straight is very far away from the spurt. Usually within a couple hundred meters, you will be at max speed, and you will have pretty much full effect of her ultimate at that point. So last trait's very good on mediums and longs, and it's very iffy on miles and sprints. Banish and dip behind less than or equal to 1 simply means is there a horse behind you. There's 3 situations rather, where this will really occur. The first one is, hey, you enter the final straight and there's a horse behind you. This will normally happen if you're in the front of your particular roll or you're in a very clustered pack. This is almost always going to be the case, so normally the first timing on the straight will be when this skill procs. However, if you are lagging behind in last place, that's really the only time it won't ever happen, but in that case you're probably having bigger issues than just having one skill not proc. So it will most likely proc very quickly. The second time that it can proc is if you overtake somebody, then a horse is immediately deemed to be behind you by 1 horse length or less, and it will proc immediately on the overtake. The third situation, so that's more towards gamblers, and the third situation, this is more particular towards front runners and possibly pace chasers, especially lucky pace chasers. If a character is not within 1 horse length, so let's say you're on the final string, you're a front runner, you don't have as high of a speed coefficient as those end closers and late surgers, and the end closer is shooting behind you at Mach 5 and approaches you and gets very close to you and is less than 1 horse length at that point. At that point, you will immediately trigger this ultimate if it has not triggered yet. So this acts yet again as a pass protection ultimate. We've had Sakura Chiono, we have Mejiro Ardan right now, and these two join Mayano Top Gun as basically a way to try to outlast other roles that are running faster than you, someone who's hit a little better than you, and just try to get it through raw speed. It is not necessarily the best strategy in the world still. There is not enough support for it, but it is a way that if you have these characters, and surprisingly enough, they have pretty good affinity with each other, you can kind of just put them, if you have the skill points, and just put it on a character, and you will find that you fight a little bit against people trying to pass you. So that is what pass protection is. Somebody tries to pass you, and you proc a bunch of skills at that point that trigger because of the attempted pass to shoot yourself forward to try to get enough speed to outlast the last couple 100 meters. All right, so if you get those very simple 2 conditions, you get a 4-second 0.45 stamina drain minus 0.01. So 0.45 for 4 seconds is 1.8 distance units. The stamina drain is about 67% of a white recovery, so that scales based on the length. So shorter tracks, there's less stamina. Longer tracks, it's more stamina. It's between 30 stamina and 100 stamina. If you get an extra white recovery skill at any point, it pretty much offsets the stamina drain. Because it's so consistent in that it will most likely proc in almost every single race, you can just basically tag yourself to get about additional 50 to 100 stamina. If you're able to get that without much trouble, this ultimate compared to Oguri Cap ultimate is about 20% worse. But consider 2 things. 1, Oguri Cap Triumphant Pulse is one of the best, if not the best, late race speed ultimates in the game. It's above rate, and it's just kind of ridiculous. The second thing is that even though Oguri Cap's ultimate is 2nd through 5th, it's a very, very wide position-based requirement. Mejiro Ardan's ultimate, because of its conditions, have 0 positional-based requirement. So you can proc it if you're having a bad race, you're in 6th through 9th, let's say. But more importantly, you can proc this in 1st, like Tiamat Pro ult. So this is usable on many different types, many different roles and strategies in the race, and that's sort of unique to her. So even though it is slightly below rate to Oguri Cap, the literal one of the best inherits and best ultimates in the game, it's still a very good skill if you can manage the stamina drain. So as stamina becomes less and less relevant, this ultimate does get a little stronger. Her inherit is actually exactly on rate at 1/3, so it goes down to 2.4 seconds and keeps everything else except for it goes to 0.25 instead of 0.45, which again is above rate. So normally it's a 0.15 for ultimates, and now this is a 0.25 inherit for the ultimate, much like Triumphant Pulse. You can't really compare it with Triumphant Pulse, however, you can compare it to a white skill like Homestretch Haste, which is 2.4 seconds for 0.15. So even though this is slightly more expensive, if you, again, can handle the stamina drain, it is above rate and maybe worth taking even at low skill points. So you only need like 1 or 2 types of hints to really get down to like that 160 mark where you're basically at the skill point efficiency of a standard white skill. Before we talk about her skill suite, we need to talk about her career because it is sort of unique to her. when you complete her debut, you will get Legs of Glass, which is her lore reason, her lore career unique thing. So Legs of Glass basically means that when you participate in 2 optional races in particular, one after the other, you will get bad practice, which I believe is practice poor, and you will lose 10 energy. This is kind of akin to Meisho Doto when you have that 50-50 chance of losing 10 energy for racing in the junior year. You basically have to consider whether or not you want to race 2 races in a row on this character. You also essentially will take a choice of whether or not you want to run the Kakukusho for long or Tennosho Autumn for medium. And then once you complete those, you will heal the Legs of Glass. So from the debut all the way into the classic year Autumn, you essentially have this debuff. It is kind of more of an annoyance than anything else because it's only 10 energy and practice poor, but it is there and it's an additional thing to think about. Now, Trackblazer. I'm not 100% certain how this works. How I think this works is that I think all of these are disabled. So I don't think Legs of Glass even exists in Trackblazer. However, I believe there is the chance that Legs of Glass, because debut is still a race and may still have its event enabled, that you can get Legs of Glass, however you can never clear it. And that would be very, very unfortunate for Trackblazer. Someone in the comments, please help me with that because I have not played JP, so I do not know. If you are unable to heal Legs of Glass, you have to take this consideration that you will pretty much be trying to alternate races the entirety of Trackblazer. But it just seems really weird, and I believe and I really hope that they just disable Legs of Glass completely for Trackblazer because this is really the only racing objective scenario that we're ever going to have. And that would make it really, really unfortunate, but kind of par for the course for Cygames to release a character that needs to wait like 4 months before they actually can play the game properly. Other than that, her careers are pretty standard. You have very, very flexible fan requirements because you have the Legs Glass thing you have to deal with, and then you do Japanese Derby, and then you can choose between Kakukusho or the Tennosho. And then I don't believe there's any other long races, so you're just miles and mediums from here on out. So a relatively easy career. You just choose the medium here, and then you're fine. So her skills. Frontrunner mains. You can get a little excited. This is really the only thing it gives you, but you do get left-handed, which I know is the harder of the two-handeds to get. So no need to run Silent Suzuka unless you really want Unrestrained. She comes with it innately, notably the same as her card. Soft Step, she comes with a couple of medium skills. Soft Step is that white recovery that will almost always proc, so this is a very reliable white recovery she comes with to pretty much just counter her ultimate. Bunch of Pace Chaser skills. Pace Chaser Savvy is good. It comes on an event where you can choose either a random chance at charming and some energy, some power, or PCS. A lot of times the power is going to be a better option, but PCS is a decent skill if you have the skill points for it because it's additional wit. Pace Chaser Corners is good when you're playing Pace Chaser. Prepared to Pass is good when you're playing Pace Chaser. This again is on an event as well. These are both costume events, both character events, so these will not be disabled in Trackblazer. These 4, Steadfast Pressure, Ramp Up, Corner Recovery, I believe these are, yes, they are disabled in Trackblazer because they come from the Kakukusho or the Tennosho Autumn events, depending on what you choose. So I believe Steadfast should be for the Tennosho Autumn, and Pressure should be for the Kakukusho, and then I believe the other 2 you get for healing those particular ones. So I believe Corner Recovery happens for I'll just check here, sorry about that. I know there's some typos in this one from the Game Torah. So Kakukusho gives you pressure, Tennosho gives you pressure and ramp up. Yes, that has to be Kakukusho. Yes, Kakukusho has to be pressure and ramp up, and Tennosho Autumn has to be steadfast and corner recovery. It would not make sense. Check in the game yourself. I apologize that I did not look this one up, but their Game Torah is just all messed up with this. One of them gives you 2, and the other one gives you the other 2. I would assume the long race gives you the long skill, and the medium race gives you the medium skill. Nevertheless, this is all disabled in Trackblazer. Your 2 golds are Race Planner for Pace Chaser and Come What May for Medium. Come What May is very, very good in Medium because you essentially have an additional Tri-Pulse level late race speed skill, so it's on the final straight. So this will proc in the last spurt, so notably the Hello everyone, Future Burb here. I actually caught myself for once. Last Spurt isn't talking about the race at all. It's just talking about whether your character is actually spurted or not. So once you hit that little double blue arrow, your character does a stamina calculation. If you succeed it, you enter spurt mode. If not, you sometimes delay your spurt. But in general, it should happen at this double blue arrow. So if you're on a straight, when this happens, it technically will proc. Luckily for us, the rest of the video is still valid because the medium tracks that we're having all have this little, so the spurt's always on a corner, and so essentially the next straight that's available is the final straight, and you will be essentially at max speed by the time this occurs. So you won't have to worry about anything. There is some more nuance than originally expected, but functionally speaking, it functions exactly the way as I said, where it's just a very, very nice late race speed skill, notably within second and fifth position. So you do have to have a position requirement, but it's a very good gold late race speed skill. All right, back to my old me. It's very good. So Pisces Cup, it's anywhere on this red, so it will proc right on the end here. Her CM viability is pretty simple. Any mediums or longs, specifically mediums, she will have additional help for. In the long, she is pretty much viable for. In the miles and sprints, she is pretty much Oshi run only because she doesn't really give you anything to help, and her ultimate doesn't work very well. Pisces Cup is pretty standard long race. Your medium skills won't work. However, you have plenty of distance between the spurt and her ultimate, so all of her late race works essentially. Aries Cup is a medium, so all those medium skills in her kit will work. It is clockwise, so left-handed doesn't work, but again, the spurt's up here, you'll be at max speed by here, her ultimate works. Taurus Cup is a left-handed track, so you do get left-handed. It is a medium track, so your medium skills all work. The spurt's here on the final corner, you got plenty of time until this final straight happens. She's viable, she works. Cancer Cup, same thing, medium. The spurt is a different away from the final straight. Notably, all these, I know a lot of people have talked about this. She's no Christmas Oguri, and these medium tracks, she's fighting against Christmas Oguri. The way you beat Christmas Oguri, in my opinion, is you get lucky on acceleration, and then you basically try to get as many late race speed skills to come back into the pack after that, since she will fight you with her wit in the mid race. If you're able to get enough speed in the late race to beat her acceleration, which I know is hard, you have a chance of winning. So this really is not necessarily a counter, but it does help you like regular Oguri does too, and that just the late race speed skill is a way to win the game. So she's no Christmas Oguri. These maps are going to be completely dominated by that character, but she is viable in all of these. New section this time because I didn't think about this before, but she actually has very good affinities. Going to grab some water. So her strength is a lot of times at the parent level. She has very good affinities with a lot of characters. Her strongest ones are Super Creek and Sakura Chiona O. For lore reasons, of course, Sakura Chiona O was the rival for Mejiro Ardan. She has, on the Japan server, like 30 with them and 25 with the rest. So on the US server, or on the global server, it'll be about 25 and 20. So Super Creek, Chiona O have very high affinity. Shower, Mejiro McQueen, Rudolph, Oguri Cap, El Condor Pasa, all incredibly important characters that a lot of people like building. She has very high affinity with, so it's really easy. And one in particular that I really enjoy is, hey, you have Symboli Rudolph, Oguri Cap, Mejiro Ardan, Sakura Chiona O. If you know anything about triangles in parent building, you know you want to make a triangle here and then use it on this character and then make that triangle. You can basically make a late race speed skill triangle of parents with very high affinity, so their skills are going to be passed down very easily, and then you have 3 possible ultimates that all help you in the late race, so you can really purpose build herself as a parent. Again, her aptitudes A turf, A medium, A pace, so you basically whichever pink you want, you put her to A, you make sure all the other ones are not into A, and you have a 1 in 4 at the very least, and honestly turf is fine, so usually you have a 2 in 4 or 50-50 chance of actually getting a useful pink spark, and you kind of go from there. This has been Mejiro Ardan. Kind of a good medium track racer with some decent parenting. Certainly is no Christmas Oguri Cap in terms of strength, but is certainly viable, very flexible, and again has very high affinities with other late race speed skills, offers a unique playstyle with pass protection, sort of niche in that regard, but overall, I'd say she's pretty solid. Hope you enjoyed. We're about.